also looking at what can be done to Highway 130 itself, especially in the area where there are cracks, to be able to test to make sure it's safe, and then identify mitigation actions that we can take so that vehicles can travel over that part of the highway.
Is that the preferred option, to be able to reopen 130?
Well, we do know that it's important to maintain transportation so that the residents would be able to go to work and take other actions that they need to try and get back to some sense of normalcy.
So is DOT testing now to see whether that's a viable option on 130 specifically?
Well, they definitely are looking at, and they had a couple designs from the last lava flow that they were prepared to implement if it had extended longer. So they are dusting off those old plans and kind of talking to experts to make sure that it would be viable and that it would actually help the situation.
There was bridges involved, as I recall. That's sort of
correct.
Thing,
yeah. They're looking at bridges, things that they can lay over the compromised sections of the highway to be safe, to assure that vehicles could, cars and things could go over it without putting the public at risk.
And how about any increases in state aid, additional guard assistance or other?
Certainly, we are prepared. I can get the current numbers. We have, I know the last time I checked, there were 75 guards people involved in this event. I know that there are additional requests for services, especially as the duration of the event extends. Hawaii County Police and firefighters have been on extremely long shifts already, so we definitely are looking at what and how the Guard can support the county civil defense personnel. And as you know, we've had people here from Oahu and Maui as well. So it is a statewide effort in terms of ensuring that we have the people on the ground that can keep the community safe.
There was a lot of concern about geothermal. There have been additional steps taken to secure that site with the new fissure at Lanipuna.
As you know, we have put together a team of experts that are finalizing the plan to mitigate the risk. We should be having an announcement on that shortly. I think we are working through the final details of what we believe we need to do to keep to mitigate the risk that is presented by the geothermal facility.
What is the risk exactly?
The concern, it's two big risks, I guess, and we've already alleviated. The first one was the pentane and the 60,000 gallons of pentane that we have moved across. The second risk really is if the wells themselves are compromised and there's an unrestricted release of gases from the geothermal well, and the most lethal one would be hydrogen sulfide. So we are looking at actions that we can take to assure that that doesn't happen. We do have an expert. We have people in from California, as well as FEMA has made geochemists and other personnel available to the team. They are finalizing, like I said, they are finalizing the mitigation plan as we speak, and we hope to have a specific announcement later on today.
There was discussion about some equipment that needed to be flown in from California, I guess, to inject water into the wells. Is that happening?
I've actually already authorized that expenditure. They talked about it last night. We do believe that it's important to have that equipment here on site to reduce the risk of, to the public. Our first and foremost priority is to ensure that we can keep the community safe. If that means that we have to fly in and expedite the equipment, then we're going to do it.
Has it lifted off yet? Do you happen to know?
I don't have the specific departure time. I know that they were making arrangements for that to happen. We can definitely get that information out to you.
Coming back to the roads for just a second, is there a construction time or date specific that they'll be starting work on that?
Well, they are out inspecting the roads right as we speak, and really it would only be necessary if they find that the roads are not safe. Because of where the lava flow was headed and the fissures seem to be approaching Highway 130, they felt that it's better to just shut it down at this point. Obviously, as we look into a prolonged event, we do want transportation to get back to normal as best as we can. And so Ed and his crew will be on the ground today to inspect Highway 130 with the intention that if it's safe, that we could reopen it immediately. If there are areas that are not safe, then we would look at what specific action would be necessary to create bridges or other kinds of support that would allow the road to be passable.
Governor, just to clarify, I'm sorry, there's a lot of roads and a lot of different numbers to throw around, but Highway 130 has been closed for about 2 weeks, close to that, and that's the one you're talking about bridging?
Well, they're looking at both, right? They ultimately want to reopen 130, but 132 is also closed. So, you know, the mitigation actions would work, the bridges would work on either highway, obviously. So, you know, they are inspecting what is necessary so that they can restore routes to as many people as possible. You know, on that front, some of that might be establishment of temporary roads and bypass roads that would allow us to allow the residents and others back into the communities. Some of it might be construction of bridges and things that would go over the existing roadway that would allow cars to pass.
And your main concern over the air quality and the sulfur dioxide, I know we've spoken to a lot of residents concerned about not being able to get masks or respirators. Anything you would say to them on that?
Well, I can tell you that the safety of the communities is the number one concern. We just talked about it in the briefing this morning, you know, trying to get more monitoring equipment out, be able to keep the community safe, keep them informed of what the levels of the toxic gases would be. Definitely that's a high priority for us. And once again, just in making sure that we can get appropriate equipment for those employees that actually will have to continue to work in the area, respirators, badges that would allow us to monitor the employees' exposure to the chemicals are very, very important as well. So we are making efforts to get all of those on the ground and deployed around the community so that they can be aware of what the reading levels are, especially close to the subdivisions, and then also to allow us to keep the community safe, allow them to live there and be as normal as can be, but be prepared to evacuate so that we have the information that we need if it is getting to be a risk to the community, that we issue the evacuation orders so that they can get away from the toxic gases.
So the state's working to get those more sulfur dioxide monitors and respirators for employees who go in?
Well, for those who would be exposed to the gases, for example, if we do have to construct bridges in some of those areas, and if there are levels of exposure that we find would be unacceptable, then we want them to be able to work in that environment in a safe way. You know, we don't anticipate that is necessary today, but clearly if we are going to ask employees to be in the area, we want to make sure that they have all the equipment to keep them safe.
Governor, is there any discussion on why the schools are still open when some people say the air quality is poor and the kids are experiencing trauma?
Well, we are actually positioning a lot of the air monitoring equipment that we have close to the schools because obviously that's a priority, I think, for the entire community. And generally, the schools are centrally located in those subdivisions. As we get more equipment, then we'll deploy them to other areas as well.
And then any update on evacuation plans, of course, with the crater, the potential of that looming. Any update on the state's evacuation plans? I know there's been a shortage of places for people to go other than those shelters.
Well, we do know that there has been an increase in the shelter use as we've announced mandatory evacuations. Last night there was more than 484 in the Pahoa shelter and another 25 in the Keao shelter. You know, the shelter census kind of goes up and down depending on where the flow is and where we've issued evacuation orders. We are preparing other shelters and we'll be announcing them as necessary. I think the most important thing to remember is that the shelters are pet friendly, and so if they If the residents have pets that they are concerned about, they certainly can bring them to the Poho and Ke'au shelters. We continue to work with the Red Cross to make sure that we have food, water, and other provisions to keep people safe in those shelters.
What are your schedule today? Are you planning to go inside or?
No, I'm going to be heading back. I came out here explicitly to get a brief on the mitigation efforts on Puna geothermal. And as I said, they are very close to finalizing what that mitigation plan would be, and I'm certain they'll be making an announcement sometime today.
So you're heading back now?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Governor.
So
Thank
this
you.
focus was Puna geothermal, this briefing. For the most part?
No, it's a general
General.
briefing.
It's a
general briefing.
I came for a specific
Oh,
briefing
okay.
on Puna geothermal.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Thank you, folks.
Safe
Thank you,
travels.
Governor.
Earthquake occurred in Chile-Bolivia border region with magnitude 2.26 status C and a depth of 92 kilometers occurred on in an hour. Source GEMPA. Earthquake occurred in 15 kilometers south of Hastings with magnitude 2.1 status A and a depth of 36 kilometers occurred on in an hour. Source GeoNet.